Um, the months leading up to November 3rd of 2020 were for Donald Trump almost a carbon copy of what he had done going into the presidential election 4 years previously. He thumbed tweets, whined like a little bitch at his Klan rallies, and complained to anyone who would listen that the election had been rigged by Democrats. Of course, after the election eve in 2016, we never heard another peep out of him about the dastardly Democrats and the worldly ways that they had rigged the election against him because he had cheated to win. But from the moment that his network of pet poodles at Faux News called Arizona for Joe Biden in November of 2020, causing a series of eruptions in the private quarters at the White House, and it culminated in a call to faux executives to demand that the network reverse its Arizona projection. And Trump understood that this time it would be different, that he would lose because he deserved to. Um, Trump immediately turned on Faux News, and turned immediately to the courts, filing more than 60 federal lawsuits in the battleground states that he lost, claiming that the election had been stolen from him, which it wasn't. But as one case after another went down to defeat or outright dismissal, he turned to the loyalist coons, like the goons, basically, like the former General Michael Flynn, online conspiracy theory Alex Fat Ass Jones, he's a fucking nutcase, former White House advisor Sebastian Gorka, the My Pillow crackhead Mike Lindell, and wait for it, the racist group the Proud Boys to push his obsession that he hadn't lost, but technically he did lose, and that the election had been rigged by nefarious forces, which it wasn't. See, if this doesn't sound familiar, because on December 12th, several thousand pro-Trump sycophants showed up in Washington for at least two Klan rallies, one on the Mall, and the other on the steps of the Supreme Court, to protest its decision the previous day to throw out a lawsuit filed by the Attorney General of Texas to bar the states of Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania from casting their electoral ballots for Biden. The court issued a brief unsigned order on December 11th saying that Texas had no interest in the manner and how the other states conducts its elections, and dismissed the lawsuit. But a few days earlier, the court had dismissed another suit filed by Pennsylvania Republicans seeking to throw out that state's Biden's electors, thus disenfranchising millions of voters. And Trump was watching closely, with the racist group Proud Boys marching through downtown Washington in mock military formations, shouting "Move out" in 1776. Trump tweeted, "Wow, thousands of people forming in Washington D.C. to stop a steal that wasn't really a steal at all, and didn't know about this, but I'll be seeing them, maggot." A bit later, he tweeted, "We have just begun the fight." He must have liked what he saw in the streets of the nation's capital that Saturday, because 7 days later, on December 19th, Trump was tweeted, "Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there, and it will be wild." The next week, on December 26th, he tweeted, "The Justice Department and the FBI have done nothing about the 2020 presidential election voter fraud." That's because there wasn't any fraud, you fucking fat ass. The biggest scam in our nation's history, which it was not, despite the overwhelming evidence, and there was no evidence for any of any fraud. And they should be ashamed. Yeah, Trump, you should be ashamed for lying. History will remember. Oh yeah, history will remember that you're a twice impeached fucking fat ass. Now get over it. Never give up, and see everyone in DC on January 6th. But after 7 hours of testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee last Saturday by the former acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, and 5 hours of testimony before the same committee on Friday by Rosen's former acting deputy Richard Donahue, we now know that behind the scenes Trump was very busy. On December 15th, the day after Bill Barr announced that he would be leaving his post as Attorney General, Trump had summoned Rosen to the Oval Office and told him that he wanted the DOJ to file a legal brief supporting the lawsuits he had not yet lost challenging the election results in battleground states. He demanded that Rosen appoint special counsels to investigate Dominion voting systems, which had provided the voting machines in multiple states, and Rosen demurred, citing what Barr had already reported to Trump, which was that the DOJ had investigated his charges and found no evidence of widespread or significant voter fraud to change the outcome of the election. Now, Rosen had told the Judiciary Committee that Trump called him almost daily, trying to get him to have the Department of Justice declare that the presidential election was corrupt, which it wasn't, and announced that the department was initiating investigations of election irregularities in multiple states, including Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all states that Trump had lost narrowly to Biden. And Rosen continued to defer and delay on the phone, and Trump started talking with the acting head of the DOJ's Civil Division, Jeffrey Clark, who was more amenable to Trump's conspiracy theories. Rosen described to the Judiciary Committee 5 separate encounters with Clark over his plotting behind Rosen's back with Trump, all of which took place between December 23rd and January 3rd. Trump became fixated on his narrow defeat in Georgia, placed a now famous phone call to Governor Brian Kemp on December 5th, trying to get him to pressure the state legislators to overturn Biden's victory in the state. And Kemp basically turned it down, telling him that he had no power to call for investigations into signatures on absentee ballots or any of the other things Trump was urging him to do. On December 27th, at Trump's urging, Clark produced a letter dated the following day that he wanted Rosen and Donahue to sign it. Aware that the governor of Georgia had rejected Trump's entreaties, Clark's letter amounted to a DOJ legal analyst that the state legislature could call itself into session without the governor's authority, and he rejected the electors' pledge to Joe Biden and appointed his own slate of Trump electors. Time is of the essence, the Clark letter pleaded, because Congress would convene in joint session to certify the election on January 6 for Biden. Rosen and Donahue refused to sign the letter, telling Clark that this is not even within the realm of possibility, and that didn't end it. Clark apparently demanded a meeting with Rosen and Donahue, which took place at the DOJ on New Year's Eve, and Clark told them that Trump was planning on firing Rosen and replacing him with Clark so that he could carry out his plan to manipulate the Georgia legislature into appointing a new slate of Trump electors, and Clark told his two bosses that he was meeting with Trump the next day to carry this out. But instead, Clark met with Trump a day later and showed him the letter discussing their plan for a Trumpian Saturday Night Massacre, and Rosen and Donahue demanded a meeting with Trump at which they planned on telling him that the entire senior leadership of the Justice Department would resign en masse if Trump appointed Clark as acting Attorney General. And before that meeting took place, news emerged that Trump had placed a lengthy call to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, demanding that the latter find enough votes to overturn the election results in his state. Basically, Trump told him, I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, Trump said, according to a tape of the call obtained by the Washington Post. The Oval Office meeting between Trump, Rosen, Donahue, and Clark went on the next evening, attended by the White House counsel Pat Cipollini, who advised the president not to fire Rosen because such a move would trigger congressional investigations and distract from Trump's attempts to overturn the election. After 3 hours, the meeting broke up with Rosen and Donahue still in their jobs. Rosen and Donahue told the Senate Judiciary Committee that with only 17 days left remaining until the presidential inauguration, they believed they had avoided a constitutional crisis. But we all know what happened 3 days later, on January 6th, when a violent mob of Trump sycophants breached the Capitol building and delayed for several hours the certification of the electoral ballots that would make Joe Biden president. Between the early hours of November 4th, when Trump first realized he had lost the election, and January 6th, when the assault on the Capitol dominated every news cycle until the inauguration and beyond, Trump was all over the place in his attempts to overturn the election. He was consumed with lawsuits being filed around the country on his behalf, but was losing them just one after another. He was obsessed with following conspiracy theories about Biden's ballots being carried by Special Forces soldiers from Germany and stuffed into ballot boxes in battleground states, which never happened. About mysterious computers and satellites controlled by Italy switching Biden votes for Trump, which didn't happen either. And battleground states and multiple other outlandish conspiracy theories that anybody could come up with. Beginning on December 12th with the racist group Proud Boys marching through Washington and the demonstrations on the Mall and at the Supreme Court, Trump became fixated on holding a Klan rally on January 6th that he believed could prevent the certification of electoral ballots taking place that day. 2 days later, he began his campaign to get the Department of Justice to join his plan to pressure state legislators in a handful of states, and he had lost to throw out Biden electors and appoint their own slates of Trump electors. He tweeted on December 19th, the 26th, the 27th, and the 30th, all dates coinciding with his pressure on Rosen and Donahue to use the Department of Justice to help him overturn the election. But on January 1st, the day that he met with Jeffrey Clark to discuss firing Rosen, he tweeted the big protest Klan rally in Washington, D.C. will take place at 11 a.m. on January 6th. Location details to follow. Basically, he says stop the bullshit steal, which basically when I'm calling that bullshit is because there was no steal. On January 4th, Trump traveled to Georgia to hold a Klan rally, nominally in support of the two Republican candidates in the U.S. Senate runoff election, but really to put pressure on Georgia legislators to overturn the election. Practically every move that Trump made in December and January in advance of January 6th was a crime. Pressuring Jeffrey Rosen to misuse the Department of Justice to support his private lawsuits was a crime. Conspiring with Jeffrey Clark to fire Rosen so Clark could send a letter to the Georgia legislature, that was also a fucking crime. Calling Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp and pressuring them to find votes and use the legislature to overturn the election was a fucking crime. Meeting with his own White House staff and outside advisors to plan a Klan rally on the Ellipse at which he would incite the assault, in which he would incite the assault on the Capitol was also a fucking crime. Trump's fucking problem is, to put it frankly, was that he didn't start committing fucking crimes to begin with and early enough. The crimes that he committed in December and January were largely impulsive and not carefully planned or fucking focused. He exploded with tweets and phone calls and meetings and holding fucking pathetic clown rallies. In short, Trump is Trump. As incompetent a criminal conspirator as he was as a squatter, the only question left to be answered at this fucking point is whether Merrick Garland and the Biden Department of Justice will have the courage to charge him and his co-conspirators with the felonies that they committed, defrauding the United States by attempting to illegally influence the outcome of the 2020 election. If that crime sounds familiar, that is because it is the same one that the special counsel Robert Mueller charged 24 Russian nationals with committing in 2016 when they illegally hacked into Democratic National Committee servers, stole the campaign emails, and set up fake accounts to influence voters on American social media platforms. With Donald Trump, nothing is ever new. Just fucking watch how pathetic he is. He's out there right now raising $100 million to do it all over again in 2024, and the entire Republican Party is right there with him. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King, and also hit the notification bell so that you get notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.